Welcome, everyone, to this broadcast. Mark DeJesus here with my amazing wife and co-host, Melissa. This is a topic, a subject, an area I've been wanting to get into for some time, and I pray that it'll be a blessing to your life and your journey. We have some thoughts on where we're going to go with this, I think, but we're just going to let this kind of travel, because what we want to do is we want to get into the subject of heart healing, and especially when it comes to the heart of a woman and what it's like, the struggle, the journey of healing through pain, what that looks like. And I'm actually going to use a question that has come in, but it reflects a lot of questions that I get in this area. And I've wanted to do this for quite some time. And
you have indeed.
And for whatever reason, we just now feel like it's time to talk about this more. I think it's very, very important. And I first want to say that I love having conversations with you. And that's the birth of this whole podcast.
True.
Is I found ourselves, to take people back just a little bit. I began the podcast as a solo thing. I think it was around 2011-ish that I started doing audio podcasts. I wasn't doing video at the time at all. And that led to about 150 episodes, which we totally removed and rebooted and started a season format that many of you have seen. Up until this point, we've done 10 seasons of more categorized topics and things like that. But anyway, I started off in the beginning, and I had you on as a guest. And I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, we did have fun.
Because it reflected a little bit. And one of the greatest things I treasure about my relationship with you is that you are a great person to have conversation with.
Thank you.
We would have these talks in where we first lived in our condo, and we'd sit there in the kitchen, and I would just throw things out on the table. And they might be like things I'm learning. It might be like things I'm going through, things you're going through, things we look at world or the news, and we would just talk. And there was a lot of sharpening. There was a lot of great things that happened there. And I was like, if I could give people a taste of this a little bit,
right,
I think it could bless them and it could encourage their journey. I mean, obviously, couples have private conversations, things like that. But we're like, I really felt like people would be very blessed by getting maybe just a little bit of exposure to our conversation and how we talk.
Yeah, and we'd have people over, and we would have, great conversations, and no one would want to leave.
Right.
They enjoyed how we would bring up things and talk about them, and they would engage. So people just never wanted to leave our house. Yeah,
and the thing I appreciate about you so much, well, there's many things, but in regard to our discussion today especially, is how helpful it was for me to feel like I could talk to you about pretty much anything. And I felt a safety. It was even in the beginning when we were dating, I shared with you, hey, listen, I struggle with these areas, their anxiety issues, relationship struggles, thoughts, but I'm working through it. And I'm very, very determined and passionate about getting the healing I need. But your approach in how you created safety for me to express myself. And when I would share things with you, I would go, here it goes. She's gonna reject me. Here it comes, And then I was like, what? Wow, to see that you would hear me and let me process a bit what I was saying. And you made me, it was one of the most loving moments that I've experienced. And I treasure that.
Thank you.
I treasure that. So whether that gets reflected in what we do in ministry or whatever, that's one thing. But I just really treasure that on a one-on-one basis. You have such a great heart about you that I can talk and share.
I feel the same about you. We've really had that, I think, from the beginning of everything that we've had to share about our history, things we've struggled with. We understood. I know you've taught on it before, kind of like a separation of understanding, like, a lot of the things are not you, that you're in process, and you need a safe place to land, just like I needed a safe place to land.
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally. And I think that I look at your journey, and you're a woman who's been through pain. Mm-hmm. You've been through heartache. You've been through stuff. And I think there's a lot that I'm blessed by in our conversations together of how you process certain things. And we get email after email after email of people just in general, of pain that they're going through in various ways, and not very equipped in how to deal with pain. And I would say that going into seasons of pain we've experienced, I go, boy, was I not prepared. Not that you can be perfectly prepared for storms, but boy, there was very little. I had to dig pretty deep, and I didn't have a lot of references on how to navigate that. And you've had that as well too. And so what I thought we could get into today is specifically targeting a woman of God who's going through pain that is very challenging, that hits you to the core. And a lot of what I get written in questions and things like that surrounds a pregnancy, surrounds infertility, surrounds miscarriages, surrounds very difficult births, surrounds the battle in marriage, and those kind of arenas. And I'd like to, whether, and I want to say this to our audience, whether you connect to the actual situation that we talk about or not is not the point. It's more looking at what does it look like for a woman to walk the healing journey. There's a lot of expectations that women struggle with of what does it look like? What does it mean to be? There's a lot of pressures they come under. There's a lot of things that they process things differently than men do. And I think there's my goal in this is to help provide some safety and some encouragement to sisters in Christ that are going through struggle. But I also don't want any of our men to just tune out and go, oh,
right.
Here's a thing for the ladies to listen to. It's like, wait a second. We as men have a massive recovery to work through in not only awakening to who we are as men of God, because the war is thick over that, but also how do you relate to your wife? How do you relate to women? And I know that's a very deep issue. You can go into a lot of different areas. But anyways, I just pray that guys will listen in, because I think they need to tune in to the heart of what we're sharing here.
Right. And when you are looking at the state of marriages and relationships on the breakdown of them, most men would say, I don't know how to help her. Just, Right. And they kind of hope she just goes to get help. And meanwhile, you're negating a precious process here of where even if you don't have the right words, you can, in understanding, be a safe place for her to express herself and land. That is we'll get into it later in the episode, but safety is like the highest level that can help heart healing for both people, but whatever, we'll get to that. Right. Yeah.
So here's a question that comes in. It's not an uncommon question. And for years I've bumped into this, and I'll use this as kind of a springboard. And we'll talk about our experience. I want to specifically ask you some questions of how you process these things. The question is basically narrowing it down. I had a miscarriage a few years ago. How do I find myself again? I noticed that I don't take care of myself since and don't do anything for myself. I feel like I'm not the same person anymore. How do you grieve this? So I feel like each sentence has a lot in it. Yeah. And it does seem that there's such a deep emotional pain that comes about in this. And there's so much in a woman. I mean, you're talking about life within your own womb, right? There's a battle in infertility issues and things like that. People are struggling.
There's a lot going on, right?
Of even getting to that place of conception, right? Then miscarriage. It seems like there's a lot of experiences of this, of miscarriages,
right? For
whatever reason, but very, very painful, because you're talking about this is life within you. This is expectation of joy,
and really what your body's meant to do, right?
Right. And then there's the actual birth process, which for many can be very, very challenging.
We've had all the above.
Which for you,
we've had all the above.
The miscarriage part, between Max and Abby,
Yep.
that was totally a surprise. And your birth experience for both kids was very, very difficult.
Very, very traumatic. Both.
Yeah. So that's been a deep place of pain and things that.
And Max is 13 and Abby's about to be 11. And those are still things to this day that I have that moment that I have to process through. Mm-hmm.
So I think the first thing I think of is when you have, like when we had the miscarriage. Mm-hmm. I remember the day. I remember going in. It was like a routine appointment. Right? We're going to go to this, and then we're going to go to lunch, and
right. We didn't
and we didn't realize the rest of the day would be spent crying and processing. I think the thing that we've bumped into a lot is first how people respond to your pain, because the first thing you do, right? The first thing you do is you share with those you trust or want to trust,
right? Because you're in shock. Mm-hmm.
Right. So you go, okay, this happened. That's the first challenge, isn't it? And what does that feel like? What's your initial perception of that experience of sharing it?
Okay. Well, we shared it with family and they were great. Family was great. It was, church people. So we had two kind of, I think, really bad responses from one person that was close to me and someone who was like a peer for you, pastoral peer. And the person that was close to me told me that the Lord had showed them that they knew it. I knew it. The Lord showed me you were gonna lose this baby. And then you had a peer on, I believe it was Facebook when we were on social media.
Oh, yeah.
Respond to you because we did share this.
Oh, so you're going to bring trauma recall for me now.
Sorry.
No.
Well, because to this day,
I know exactly
it really angers me.
Okay, so yeah, let's break this down, because that, like, the Lord showed me what I feel is like, that's creepy. That's creepy.
Well, we live in a very highly prophetic church right now. The church is, whatever stream you're in, there's a lot of prophetic people that call themselves prophets or have whatever. I'm not here to debate that.
Kind of like I hear from
yes, God told me.
I would even remove the prophetic label, because that makes some people check out. It's more the hearing from God.
Yes.
Like the Lord showed me. There's a lot of like, the Lord showed me that. Like the way people talk, it's like, oh man, you have like a direct line of access to the highest level.
Right. So let's go with the fact. Let's just say that the person did feel that. You don't say that to somebody.
Keep it to yourself.
Keep it to yourself.
Right.
And if you did feel that, then pray for the person.
So in that moment, you're in pain and the person makes it about themselves. That's what it is.
Yeah, I knew it. The Lord showed me and I knew it. Oh, well, okay.
Yeah, it was, it added a little bit extra pain. Because we were just starting a church, right? At that time, or we were in the works.
We were in about a year.
We were in the works.
No, we hadn't yet, because we started when Abby was born. So we were still doing meetings.
We were in the works of developing what would be that. And I had just announced, I think it was like a Sunday night, I just announced that we were expecting, they were celebrating. And it was, I think the next day that we went for the checkup. It was something like that. And
I don't remember.
I remember the following week, sharing, since I'd shared it publicly, then I came back and sharing. So it does bring out like people's responses, and many people are just great. So I don't want to
most people are great,
but there are those things that just sting, where we want to provide the perfect spiritual answer because we want to give like the antidote. Right? I want to give you we want to put meaning to it and give you a meaning. What you really just needed is just be loved.
Yeah. And so this is a thing too, with women. There are some very blessed women who haven't had to experience that. And I think that people who cannot relate either are like, not what's wrong with you, but there is I don't want to say superiority, but if you haven't gone through that, you cannot relate to that kind of pain. You just cannot at all. And I don't care how many weeks, how many whatever, like it is awful. Right. It is absolutely awful to go through it. Yeah. And I've known people that have had miscarriages, we did at 12 weeks. So it was, right at going into the second trimester. And, it was awful. And I've known people, that all different stages of pregnancy have lost a child, and it's horrific. It's absolutely horrific. And women who have even had to, give birth to a child in that manner, it's awful. And people have to go through excruciating pain with those things. So to say to somebody, I knew it was going to happen, it's just not loving. And I think we always try to say, okay, position yourself in a place of love and just listening. Be a good listener for somebody. So that was yucky. And then you had the pastor say to you, the Lord gives and the Lord takes away.
Yeah, I used the Job verse, the Lord gives, the Lord takes away. And it was like
publicly. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, and that was, I didn't really even know him either. That was even worse. Like, I don't even really know you. We're Facebook friends, Right. And I'm sure you're a nice guy.
I was like, did you think about that before you wrote that?
Yeah.
I think a lot of you can probably relate to like where people just say yucky things to you that you're like, what? Did you think about that before that? Did you think about that before you typed that? Or did you think about that before it came out of your mouth? And listen, I think there are things too that, you and I talk about this periodically where you have an awkward moment and you say something stupid. And then after the fact, you think, oh my gosh, I just said the most stupid thing. I hope that person doesn't think I'm crazy. So I do try to take that stand because I've done dumb things. Right?
Like you give that to the other person.
Yes,
I give that to the other person that maybe, maybe they posted that.
Maybe they didn't, maybe they were just nervous. And like, I have this incident one time that we were seeing a new primary care physician, and he was so nice. And one time I was just in like a jovial mood and he came in and I was like, hey, and it was this awkward exchange where we like hugged each other to say hi. I felt like he thought it was weird too, but it was like this, hey, and we like awkwardly hugged each other like we were friends.
Right. Like, too much. Wait, hold on.
Yeah, and then it was like, I felt like we both felt weird about it, but you couldn't take it back that we had just hugged each other. But you guys know what I'm saying?
And all the people with OCD are like, oh, I totally relate to that.
Okay, and you're like spinning about it for years. Like, I hope he didn't think I liked him. Like, yeah. Anyway.
Yeah. So, I want to point something out here is that we've learned this. What you're highlighting, it's really important. Is you balance out the story of the other person, and I think that
I try to, and not just make everybody all bad in their intentions.
Whether it's the person that is saying the Lord showed me, or I had somebody who was close to me at the time say, God just knew this wasn't going to work out.
Stand that.
And then there's, the scriptures that get thrown in certain ways. You like giving a gracious, it's not to excuse like just unwise social cues, but it is to kind of balance out your own heart. Because it's like, we're already in pain. We don't need to add on to it. Really? You had to talk that way? You had to add, right?
Well, Christians feel this burden to be like have the perfect Christianese answer. And you don't have to say anything.
Yeah.
Just I'm so sorry for that for you. Is there anything I can do? We don't know how to just simply love in that way. We're so goofy.
Well, people bring out their the way that you deal with your pain is going to come out in how you deal with other people's pain. So if you're always like hard on yourself and militant, you're gonna provide that. Like, just get up, just keep moving, whatever. If you spiral in every pain and you can't seem to navigate through it, then sometimes seeing other people, you'll react to them in that way too. That's not helpful. Like, oh my goodness. And it's like, wait, you seem more upset about this than I am. This is weird.
Right.
So I think that, but going back to what I was saying earlier, I think alleviating that story, like I don't need to carry, even though it stings, I don't need to carry this extra story. That person's in their own goofiness. It is what it is. So you go, maybe for you and some of the things that certain people said to you, you go, okay, that person's just not safe. For me on Facebook, I go, I'm deleting that comment. That's just unnecessary right now. But you know what? God bless you. Hope you're having a great ministry. But it does reveal, that's why we're getting these weird answers and weird replies, is people are not dealing with their own pain.
Correct.
So, so how am I helpful to other people? I'm helpful. The primary basis for ministry, even in what I do or what we do, is I'm sharing out of my own journey. So now I'm walking alongside of you, not sitting in some like pedestal or expertise or whatever to have the perfect answer. It's just more I'm here to love you and support and to share what's been helpful for me in my own journey. And I think that it moves us into where the Bible says, weep with those who weep, rejoice with those who rejoice. I don't know that we do either one of those very well.
No.
When somebody's blessed, it's like kicks up all this strife and envy and bitter and jealousy. And why isn't that happening for me? And why you know?
You said, wait, stressed or blessed? Oh, when somebody's blessed.
Yeah, I
thought you said stressed. I'm like, I wouldn't be jealous.
When somebody's stressed, I get really jealous about that. Why am I not stressed? Forgive me if I was slurring. Blessed. Someone gets blessed. You look at people's lives that they have, like, okay, let's look in this context. Somebody who has like 8 kids, they just always have great energy. Pregnancies went wonderfully.
Oh, sweet Lord.
Nothing against 8 kids.
You can do it. Bless your heart.
You know, live in it, you know, and then they Instagram it and they have a farmhouse and
that's the majority of Instagram right now.
You know,
and they have a couple adopted children and they can just do it.
And you go, you know, good for you, even though Instagram's a fake world. The Facebook's a fake world.
Just so everybody's clear on this.
It's all fake.
All of that is pre-planned. It's fake.
Not saying they're lying in the pictures, but it's just...
But they need content.
You're only seeing a very polished moment with polished expression.
To make you laugh, to make you think they're real. Whatever.
So that brings up another subject, because then that makes things not as helpful either. So we don't know how to rejoice with those who rejoice. It brings up our envy and jealousy. We don't know how to weep with those who weep either. Those are two dynamics that are places of spiritual maturity. If you say you're a spiritual believer and you don't know how to rejoice and weep, I don't want to hear about how mature you are, period. Period. I don't want to hear it. And if you don't have the fruit of the Spirit manifesting, I don't want to hear it either, right? Because we just kind of like, what we call spiritual maturity is how much of the Bible you know, how long you've been a Christian, and what your position is. Sorry, you can have all those and be you can be a detriment to the work of God in people's lives. That goes
to our other episode. Yeah.
But social media conditions us in some very dysfunctional ways of processing pain, because the pain, infertility, miscarriage, and difficult birth process. We've had major battles with 2 and 3, not number 1. Okay. But those 3 arenas, right? They're very private. They're very intimate things to struggle with. And I personally, you tell me what you think. I think that it's not healthy the way we are processing all these things out publicly. The journey of it.
Oversharing. And what's happening, I'm going to be very interested to see a lot of these social media influencers who share every detail of their life, every detail.
Right.
I mean, every single detail. Hey guys, this is how I'm doing my coffee this morning, and this is how cute the baby looks. I mean, every single detail is an adrenaline, dopamine hit from the likes and the comments and what these people are going to be like relationally in 10 to 20 years. I'm sure somebody's doing a study on all these things, because it's going to be really interesting to see the effects of this, because we are in a culture of oversharing, like massive oversharing.
Yeah. Because, and it's not to make it all evil.
Right.
But
True.
it's also to bring out, because you have to understand we're in the work of helping people who are struggling with deep despair, depression, thoughts that are taking them down, events in their life that they can't seem to process and make sense. And our cultural dynamics of how we interact on social media are just throwing gas into these flames and not providing redemptive work in people's lives. And I do think it's important to acknowledge that I've had a difficult time with social media in general because my heart can't handle watching people share very intimate things and struggles in very unsafe ways.
Correct.
Because my heart goes, oh, I want to protect.
Right.
I want to protect. No.
Very true.
Because the more you're sharing at that level, it reveals what you don't have in real life.
100%.
I don't want to be mean.
It's not being mean.
But it's like so the more details and the more things, because if you have it in real life, you're doing that in real life.
You're fulfilled. Right.
So you don't
need to get the hit.
So if
you don't need to make it your content. Right.
So it's like, okay, so if I'm constantly posting pictures of me and you, how much am I really just with you?
Right.
Okay. Mm-hmm. That's a whole other subject. Mm-hmm. So I don't want to judge people's motives, and I don't want anyone, like, if it helps, it helps. But I'm targeting a woman's heart who's been through pain, and when you're going through it, to turn on your social media avenues
and watch what you think other people have or how they do things. That's not truly real.
99% of the time, it's going to just add to further pain. And then now you're irritated with somebody, or now you're spun out about somebody.
Right.
And you're distracted. You're distracted from your own pain. Mm-hmm. And I think that that's another level of safety, is that, listen, this is something that you have to go through. You have to face it. Some of it, like you said, Max is a certain age. There's still parts that are there, mm-hmm. right? So nothing about what we're sharing is going to make this easier, but we want to encourage the flow of going through
the pain, right? Going through it,
the pain of this more effectively, because it's going to make you a more grounded. Pain has a way that if we'll just go through it, it makes you a much more effective person to be around relationally.
Right.
If you haven't had pain in your life or whatever, I mean, who hasn't, but you come across like you don't have pain in your life, I can't relate to you. Mm-hmm. I can't relate to you. If you've never gone through, but I can pick out of a crowd. Somebody goes, "Oh, that person's been through something."
Right.
I can watch preachers, teachers, and I go, "That person's been through something." Mm-hmm. You see it,
right?
Because it humbles you. It washes away some of the judgments you have about other people.
Correct. That's so true.
Right? Like you watch other people have fertility issues, or have miscarriage, or have really challenging birth, or birth where there's disease, or I've witnessed in my pastoral years people losing a child after birth. Like, there's something about that if you let God walk you through it, mm-hmm. is like nuclear power effective for people's lives.
Right.
I just what you've been through. And so
there's a balance. I think what we're trying to communicate to when it comes to the world that we're in today and social media is that there is a balance to being and sharing with the safety of those around you is where the real process of healing is.
Yeah, and I think where the best way I could process when people don't respond well is just, just note to self, they're just not safe in this area.
Yeah.
And don't make it like a block. I'm never going to talk to them ever again. I mean, sometimes we do that. As people, we tend to we self-protect. But I think having that sense of like, this person just isn't safe, especially in this area. And I just, now I'm aware of that. Because a lot of times you don't know until you've already tried.
Very true.
Okay.
All right, let's get, yep.
So as I'm thinking through this, tell me what you think. But in the reason we get these quick answers or these quick cliches or these statements, right? To me, it's a signal of grieving. When we want answers, it's kind of like the signal that the grieving is really inflamed and we're looking for maybe an answer.
In how we're sharing it?
In what other people share and what they say, or what, because it is frustrating when people come into like these answers they feel. Somebody dies, like, well, God wanted another person in heaven.
Oh, I was going to bring that up. It's like my pet peeve. I don't
say that again.
It's like my pet peeve when people say that. Like, I wouldn't even, pet peeve is mild. Like, to me, that's like the worst of the worst to say to someone. But
it's okay. So I'm trying to break that down. That's a sign of grieving that needs to happen because, the Bible says, weeping lasts for the night, joy comes in the morning. Wait,
so who's grieving? If you say, I lost my child, and someone says to you, oh man, God needed him in heaven.
So
who?
It's a sign that grieving needs to happen. Just grieving.
Right.
Not answers.
Okay. Yes. Right. Mm-hmm.
I think that, to illustrate it further, I think even we see this culturally, fighting and strife, stuff you see on the news and things like that, or things people are going through or whatever. A lot of times there's an issue that somebody needs to grieve, but what happens is there comes an anger of like shame and pain that's not being processed. Mm-hmm. So we look for someone to blame or quick answers.
Yeah.
Right? And so it's like, sometimes we just throw a quick answer. Oh, the devil was even that.
Right.
Right. Which, the devil comes to steal, kill, and destroy. Yeah, no question. Right. But it's like that, whether it's what we're going through and we're looking for a quick answer or someone else giving a quick answer, it's really a sign. No, you just got to grieve. So like, the Bible talks about weeping lasts for the night, but joy comes in the morning. I don't believe that the night is just go to bed, wake up, and you're fine. Although there is, aspects of that. It's more like many people, you need a night season where you actually feel through that. Mm-hmm. That's something that we lack. We don't know how to actively do that. We don't actively know. So anyways, I'm saying a lot there. Does that make sense? And what do you think about that?
I hear what you're saying. I think to just give like some clarity in those things is that we want to give a spiritual answer to something that there a lot of the times is no answer for. So that's where I agree that instead of trying to like figure out reasons why, really the higher thing is letting your heart connect to the pain and grieve.
You said in a couple sentences what took me 5 minutes to say. So well done. I think that it's like we have to leave the answer in the mystery. And we think, well, if I get the answer, then I'll figure it out. Mm-hmm. And this is a lot of what is in Christianity. It's not about figuring it out and getting it all perfectly tied. Mm-hmm. It's like mystery. That person died. I don't know why. I don't. And there's some people in certain streams that feel like they have answers of all this and that. And I think that that's very unhealthy. And I think it's very immature. Mm-hmm. But you're right. It's like we need, the deeper is I leave this in the place of mystery. Now I'm just going to feel and grieve. And in it, I'm going to find a deeper sense of faith and growing in what it means to walk with God. Okay. So let's get to some of the nuts and bolts of the grieving process, mm-hmm. because I think you have a lot to share in your story and a lot to offer that I think is important for a lot of people and what they're going through. Talk about what grieving looked like in the subject of miscarriage and us experiencing that. Mm-hmm. You as a woman experiencing this. What was your grieving process? Maybe you could share what was helpful, what was not helpful, or even what led up to that and how you process through grieving.
Right. So I think that it's important for people to have just a little bit of detail to understand even prior to miscarriage and then what happened after that. So Max's birth experience was extremely traumatic for many reasons. And, we were talking about social media before and how everything's accessible now to find. People love home births and doulas and function. All these things are very, very easy to grab at nowadays. You guys have no idea. For anybody younger that has it, like, you have access to so much. So even in Max is 13, there wasn't as much back then. So back then, though, we did want more natural birth, and the hospital we were close to had a birthing tub and all those things. And you, like most women, will laugh, and I'm sure you were even thinking it before I say it. You, in any situation, whether it's a home birth, a hospital birth, whatever, you have your preconceived thing of what it's going to be. You think it's going to be great. And it's never, except for those women who, I could slap you. No, the kid plops out, you're good, everything goes great. I don't mean to say plops out, but you just have an amazing birth. And it's amazing that you have that experience. Well, I didn't have that. So, we did not know. I'll just give some details. We did not know. And, unfortunately, I probably could have had a lawsuit against my OB and the hospital and I didn't know the things that I know now. And a part of this that I want to put on the table or put a pin in it is what it was like for me to find my voice in fighting for myself. And you too, you didn't know how to do that for me, for us. That's been a journey for us as part of this process. So Max was, they did not know I was in all kinds of pain at the end, and they should have done, it's a whole thing of what they should have done. I won't get into that. But Max was frank breech, meaning that he was legs over his head while he was still in utero, and he was smushed. He came out with torticollis, and you name it, the poor kid was a mess. So in wanting a natural birth, and that did not happen for me. They didn't know that till about almost 11 hours of me suffering through labor pains. So I had to have an emergency C-section. It was extremely traumatic. The events of when they realized that it wasn't a head, it was a butt they were feeling. The doctor had to figure that out. It, like, thing after thing after thing, and it was quick. You don't know. We didn't know what to do. We didn't know what to say. We didn't know. We were going by what the doctors are telling you. And so even in any medical situation, maybe there are some of you that maybe haven't been through that, but you've been through medical situations where you're trusting what doctors are telling you and you're going through it. And it's just, you don't know. It's like you're in war. Literally in that moment, like we were in war.
That's a very, very insightful perspective of that. You're right on. That, like, you go in, we're kind of trained that you just go with whatever's being said. You don't think of fighting. No, I need an ultrasound. I need this.
I didn't know. Right.
That applies to a lot in
our current world, correct, of what you can fight for
in your personal
decision. Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No.
Yeah.
So, so after not knowing until really years later, my body was in a shock, traumatized state. So I could not breastfeed, which that hit me as a woman. So now not only was I grieving, I could cry. What I wanted it to be, you were like in shock yourself. You know, we can joke about it now of like, you just were like a zombie. You didn't know what to do, how to help me. You had no clue how to help me. And Max was so tough. And I didn't know all the things he was probably physically dealing with coming out of a traumatic birth too. We had a doctor months ago say to us, how come no one back then recommended you to like a pediatric chiropractor or somebody that could help you for PT for like we had it was here, take the baby and go. Meanwhile, like we had so many things that happened during all that.
I had a video camera kind of in that like here we go dad mode, you know, and it's like then now you're in a surgical table, you know, and it's like
right. Everything was, I'm going to say this, it was stolen from me. What was the greatest gift was stolen.
Right.
With my first child.
Right.
You know, I remember when I found out I was pregnant with Max, and I thought, oh my gosh, what an honor to be pregnant with a son. And then I would beat myself up thinking, no, you need to be, you know, you have a son. This is amazing. Not fully being given wisdom and understanding of what was stolen, what I went through, what my body, like I had no equipping in that at all. I had no one. Even down to the lactation consultant that came to the house to help me. Because I wasn't producing milk. It was awful because my body was so traumatized. She would yell at me. She would literally come to the house and yell at me and tell me, you're not eating enough. You're not eating enough. She would yell at me that it was my fault. So I had that on top of it. So when you're talking about healing through these things or confronting them and facing them, most of us, our initial response is it was my fault. I didn't fight for him. I didn't know. It turns internally in these situations.
Right.
So little did I know the journey that would be ahead of us for Max. But we got pregnant pretty quickly. I can't remember. So Max is born in February, and then by fall following year. My gosh, my timing. Anyway,
it's all right. It's all right.
I can't remember. Yeah, following year we're pregnant.
That's right. That's a good understanding though to leading towards what happened next.
All right. So
because it's not just
So we I get pregnant again and I'm so excited, and we were due in April. So April 11th. So we go in for our we had an 8-week appointment, and they heard the heartbeat, and it was fine. And, or no, I'm sorry. They went in, yep, you're pregnant, you're great. So then we went in back for the first ultrasound. And I remember looking up at the screen, and you're trying to process what you're looking at, and you don't expect what you're going to be told. And I remember the doctor leaving, and I could see the little fetus up on the screen, and she came back and she said, I'm so sorry, but there's no heartbeat. And then they moved us to another room. And I remember you sat on the floor just weeping. You were on the floor you went down the wall and you were on the floor crying. And they have to come in, and they were great. She was, I'm so sorry.
Right.
Blah, blah, blah.
Right.
And I remember you saying to her, what can we do? You even said to her, can we pray? What can we do?
I forgot about that.
And she said, no, I'm sorry. So then you have to get clinical, and you have to book your appointments, and you have to do all those things. And when a woman goes through what she's designed to do, and someone tells you, sorry, your body, like, no. It's not going to happen. There's so many things. There's so many things that you are confronted with in that moment. And now coming from an upbringing where I was not equipped, I didn't deal with pain properly. A lot of my processing modality was more like the video that you just did on the catastrophic kind of thinking. That was kind of more my MO. Like I went to like very dramatic despair, like very, like to me, I thought I was engaging the pain because I was like very, I I thought I was like feeling the pain,
Right.
you know,
Right.
this is what's happening to me kind of thing.
Right.
Expression. Sorry, I keep hitting the mic.
That's okay.
And then, you know, we had those responses from people, but for the most part, we had, people were very kind.
Right.
Because I would say like most people, most women, I went through that too. To me, that's sometimes one of the biggest gifts is sharing with other women of, oh, honey, I've been through that too. I'm so sorry. I know what that's like. You know, it helps a woman's heart in connecting to another woman that
Right.
you know.
Maybe
Now-
maybe without them going too much into making it about their story.
Correct. Because a lot of women do.
Right? Because like, oh,
Right.
you went through that?
Yeah.
Well,
Girl, let me tell you my story. Right.
I had it happen 3 times. It's like,
Yes.
okay,
Right.
no one's competing for pain here.
Right.
Could you put the tissues over here?
Oh, sure, babe. Sorry.
That's right.
So anyway, the one thing though I will tell you, and I know you asked me like how have I processed the pain because I want to get more into that. But one thing that was really hard for me, and I think I've talked about this on one other past podcast that we've done. When we had not officially a church yet, we were meeting, and we had a couple come to our church for one of the meetings on I think it was a Sunday night at that point. And she had lost a child. And she couldn't, we shared that we had lost the baby. And she had to get up and leave, and rightfully so. You know, we were expressing our pain. But I remember feeling like, to myself, Missy, knock it off. Her pain is worse than yours. Like, you don't have a right to grieve when she's grieving that. I remember feeling that, like, oh, you only lost the baby at 12 weeks. You don't have a right to grieve.
Right.
Like going through the wave of, no, this is a real loss for me. And, oh, knock it off. You were only 12 weeks and other people have gone further than you. I had a lot of accusation come at me.
Right.
To like knock it off.
That's the language of shame that we bump up against. It doesn't allow us to, I think pressing through the layer of shame is a biggest challenge.
Right. And
Because the shame,
my growth-
tells you, oh, knock it off. This is nothing. What do you, you know?
And given the family dynamic that I grew up in, and the attention put to maybe what my parents were going through, those kinds of things, my feelings, I grew up in dismissing myself out of situations. So my modality of dealing with my own pain would either be like a high intense drama or Missy, knock it off. Your pain doesn't really matter. Other people are in worse pain. So I was very kind of like all over the place. And you didn't really, you kind of had a lot of the same stuff too in how you process. You just didn't know what to do either.
No.
So after that happened, you and I kept kind of bumping into like our bouts of depression about it. And we've got Max now, and we're bumping into things that we're going through with Max and kind of seeing things. Okay, he's not talking. What's going on here? So we were coming to terms during all of this with things we were going to have to confront with Max. And we got, like you and I went in out of like being sick. Like we were not, we did not process this well. But there was a very special moment that you initiated for us to kind of put we need to have a significant thing where we recognize what happened, but we also move to, what's the word I want to use? Recognize it, but not put it behind us. But you said, let's go and let's do like a memorial type of a thing where we went we had a pond near our town, and we went and we just kind of prayed, and we made it something that we grieved as if it was a funeral to kind of say, okay, not that we need to put it behind us, but this happened and we need to move forward.
Sometimes you need like a tangible something that's why people like journal, or they have some kind of, I don't know, experience to just give it a visceral kind of, okay, connecting to something.
Right. Which when it came to the miscarriage,
and it was just you and I. There was no one, you know.
We went and did it, and it was very, very special that we did that. But I understand this person's reaction in how, now I don't know their life. Do they have other children? I don't know. And would probably have so many other questions as to what their marriage is like. What is their life like? How did they, so many things. But your pain is very real. And if you don't have any kind of equipping in how to process that pain, especially for a woman in what, we're told like that's what your body's meant to do, it is a grief that no one, unless you've gone through it, no one can really understand. So I understand this person. Like, how do I move forward from this? So in recognizing that you and I were hitting these walls of depression and what's going on, and then and little did I know that I still had all this other baggage from Max's birth.
For sure, right.
That was very pivotal for us in processing that. And I will tell you, every April, I think about, what was the baby like? What would the baby have been like? Who would it have been? In my heart of hearts, I am convinced it was a boy. And we openly talk about it with our kids. It's not something that we keep a secret. The kids know that there's a baby in heaven that we will meet one day, and that has helped me. To acknowledge it, not to take it and shove it and stuff it away in my own private world, because I've done that and it's dark. It's very dark. And it ultimately on certain days would drive me away from you, because I would just go, okay, I'm in go mode. I can't deal with this right now. And that wasn't good. Right. But having that moment where it marked, like, we recognized that this happened, we went through this together, was very significant.
Right. I think that looking back, I don't know that I want to encourage people when we talk about being ill-equipped. I don't know that there's like you're fully equipped for stuff like this.
True, right? I don't want it. Right, you're right.
But at the same time, it would help to have maybe some cues or. And I think if I was to look back, the biggest thing that would be very, very important for the process I've saw, and you could tell me what you think, is to develop a very compassionate, kind lens in how you're looking at where you're at and what you're feeling. As a man, it's like, I gotta tie the boots tighter. I've got all these other pressures as well too. So, why am I limping? Come on, get going.
Soldier on, boy. Right.
And you're like you're saying, like there's aspects of depression, of grief, of feeling very things that hit you to the core. And I remember it kind of simplified. In some ways, it simplified things a little bit. I remember a little bit of that day where it was like, okay.
Right. It did kind of help to say, okay, this happened and we're going to be okay. We're going to make it.
Where I was going with it, it kind of simplified in like, okay, that thing I was going to do today, that's not happening.
Right.
That can wait. It's like, it does kind of do a reset. And then you look and you go, that really wasn't that important. And I was putting all that. And I remember us just kind of just being with each other and just like allowing ourselves. But I felt you talked about the dismissing of the pain that you can struggle with. And I feel like I struggle with at that time too, struggle with that same kind of feeling of dismissing the pain of what you're feeling. I should be better. I think that's the heart of the struggle. I should be better about this.
Right.
And that's the thing that needs the confrontation of the love of God. That like, no, this is the frailty of the journey that we're in. I don't think we make enough room for the humanity of the journey, especially people that pursue very supernatural, miracle kind of faith. I don't feel like they make room for the humanity of life.
No.
Jesus goes to the tomb of Lazarus and starts weeping.
That is really a great example of
to a guy he's gonna resurrect from the
Anyway,
dead, from the dead in like 30 seconds. It's like.
But he let himself feel the loss and the grief, right?
I argue he wasn't going there to resurrect him. I think he was going there to grieve, and I think he felt the pain of the loss, and in that, I think he connected to the Father's heart, and I think the Father was like, "Hey, by the way, get that boy out of there."
Right.
That's my people can whatever. Because why would somebody cry and then 10 seconds later, like that seems weird. Right. You walk in to the funeral, go, "Hey, why is everybody crying? Hey, Lazarus, come forth,"
Right.
So I think that, and that's even been a part of my healing, freedom, counseling, heart healing journey, is I don't know how to make room for the humanity of those vulnerabilities.
I wish we had known a little bit more back then, that especially coming off of the Max stuff, to say, you guys have been through a lot. You need to just receive God's love each other, and let this have its work. We were so wrapped up in just keep going, move on, or finding what was the root of that? Why did I get this? Why did this happen? Why? We were so obsessed with the why too, that we didn't just feel this is awful. God is grieving this too.
Mm-hmm. If I could be super honest, I felt a bit like we were a plague. Like we had so much stuff we were going through, because this we're talking about birth, miscarriage. We were also going through deep financial hardship. We transitioned out of leaving a church, and that was so painful because we didn't realize how much in the moving on that there becomes this very hard line of oh yeah, we don't. It's weird when you leave. I didn't realize how weird it is when you leave a church that people act weird.
Right. It's like we've likened it to the movie The Firm. He's like a Tom Cruise when you're in, you're in. When you're out, ooh.
Doesn't matter the reason.
You can have 20 something plus year friendships, relationships.
Right.
If you decide to leave a church, it is like you committed the unpardonable sin. That's it.
Yeah.
How dare you?
Right, and doesn't that reveal how we look at our little kingdoms and how we look at what? Well,
it reveals relationship. We have. I was going to say we could do a podcast on that, but guess what, kids? We have. But so anyway, so go ahead, babe. No. What do you want to say?
Well, okay. Now, I observe patterns. I observe things. I observe traits. I spend a lot of time navigating those kind of things. I find men have it in a certain way, but there's this thing about a woman's heart that you embrace this mothering so powerfully, being a mom. And when I say you, I mean women in general. And it's like this daughter gets lost. So it's like this identity of being a mother, a doer, gonna protect my kids. It's amazing. But there's this real tension I watch where very difficult for the female heart there's a war over just connecting to the heart of your identity. You have a role as a mom, but that's not your identity. You're a daughter. You are a loved daughter. And there's tension to ignore that. Stay busy, do your role, wake up. There's so much to be done. Go after. Then there's this war over births, over stuff to just hit at your heart. And then it's
and then you look and you go, where's my husband? Why isn't he helping? We'll get to that.
We'll get to that. And I think that there's a pull on women, be the most amazing mom and be a killer out there in the workplace or whatever it is. There's all these different kind of voices and all these things, clamoring. But meanwhile, what I see missing from all the discussion is at the end of the day, you're a daughter. You're a daughter created by your Father in heaven who wants you to know what it's like. How do we begin navigating that more? How do we begin encouraging the hearts of daughters to focus on that, because we're thrown into all these other metrics of where we find value.
Right.
And this is where I'll kind of go with it. It's like the value of who you are as a daughter is not really shown in your upbringing.
Correct.
So you go to marriage to rescue your heart. And the man is now passive, doesn't really have even if he does, but most likely we're in a plague of men being very passive. So there's frustration there. And so then it now leads you into, I'm going to immerse in the mother. That's a good,
being a mother, right?
Being a mother. That's a good go-to. And then, nothing wrong with that, but then you're lost in that.
Right.
And so the daughter's way back.
Right. That's like, wait, I don't have time for that. Ain't nobody got time for that. I would say that's the majority of where women land. And I don't want to, because I've been on this journey myself, and I don't want to just give do this, do this, do this. Because for everybody's process, it's different.
That's right.
In how you were raised, how you perceive love. I do think that an important message is the book, God Loves Me and I Love Myself. That book has birthed out of this journey in so many ways for us. Because I had to really, like I mentioned, I did not give myself the value in any and all situations, except for there's something wrong with you, Missy. That was my value. There's something wrong with you. You're the problem. So even when it came to trauma happening to me, it was somehow my fault. And so then to confront that, I didn't know what to do with it. So then it was just easy to just shove it down somewhere. Or have a good cry out of a desperation cry, but it was not really a productive cry. It was more like, oh, I'm a victim. And wipe the tears, girl. You got to keep going. You got stuff to do, So it took a lot for me. It still does. Well, it's gotten easier. I shouldn't say that but it's been a journey of me being able to settle myself, receive God's love for me first, sit in that for a while to find that. Cause I have, such a hard time getting that piece, like holding on to it, because the beautiful part is when I get it, then I have like the wisdom to how I'm going to walk through everything else. Yep. And I just thought, okay, God, give it to me. Put it on me. I'm ready. I'm your kid. I'm your daughter. Go. Can you hurry up? Because I got stuff to do. Like there's such a tension with that as a woman.
Yeah.
Not that men don't go through that too, but there's such a tension in that of us because of our busy day. Like, I don't have time for this. Like, can you just give it to me? Have mercy on me, God, so I can just get what I need to get done. And it's like, no, I've had to wrestle with God with this in so much of this pain. But then when I finally was able to start getting those little moments of where he was like, you know what? I just want to love on you. You need to receive that in order to us move to like the next part of your healing.
So
Does that make sense?
So yeah.
Because I don't want to beautify it all. Like it's hard. I don't ever want to.
I like that we're not giving the Christian TV answer. That's great. I think that I really appreciate you saying, you know what, this is not a cookie cutter approach. So I think there's some things I think about in what you're sharing. One of the things I think about is like God can handle your emotional expression.
Right. Like, I think, you know what? My gosh, I love that you just brought that up. Finish your thought. Mm-hmm.
I think we talk to God as though we need to execute this thing just right. Mm-hmm. If you're expressing, God, I don't know where you are, what you're doing, and what's happening. He's not afraid of that. And he's not like, oh, that's it. We're done.
Right. Girl, you didn't come to me in a good way today, so I'm not speaking to you.
And I
like
think
our parents did.
Isn't it so powerful when Jesus is acquainted with all our weaknesses and vulnerabilities? The scriptures talk about that. And he very, very well, God, the word becomes flesh, dwells among us. And God can handle that authentic expression. And I think that it starts with, you say loving yourself, seeing yourself through love. It starts with the loving perspective, the merciful, gracious, compassionate interpretation of where you're at in that pain. So here's where I saw it modeled. You modeled this for me, and I'm very grateful to you for it, because I didn't have it. Because during those seasons, we had this dream of this ministry, didn't happen, start off the way we thought. I had all these other things. I was working other jobs. It's just every day is like, right. And there were days where I would go, oh my goodness, like I'd be on the couch and I go, I can't, I feel like I can barely move.
Right.
What is going on with me? Like I would do that a lot, right? Where I would just like, is it like, am I sick? Is there something wrong? And you would look at me and you would go, honey, you're going through a lot.
Right. We would have to tell each other that a lot.
Are you aware of what you're going through?
Right.
And I think that this is something that we don't take into consideration. And I know that there's a danger of people sulking in their problems, and I know that we're concerned about the next generations coming out, and they it's like, oh,
right. How do I feel when I got up today? Right.
Right.
We're over. Right. Okay. That's not what we're talking about.
But
right
I don't want to not emphasize the need for this at the fear that somebody's going to take it to an extreme. Okay. So I'm letting that go.
Right.
How much we just don't recognize that. So like, for example, somebody leaves a church, maybe it's an abusive church or it's a very difficult thing. And then 2 weeks later, they're like in another church and they're wondering like, oh my gosh, I'm in a church service. I'm having panic attacks. What's wrong with me? It's like, what, and you looked at me, Mark, do you realize what you're going through? And I'm like, maybe I have, just like.
Meanwhile, we're being like blacklisted, gossip. It was so bad because we stayed basically within the community of the church that you had just left.
Right.
And we were like, never mind like what was going on with us internally in our house. We had like all this external stuff coming against us too, of gossip and slander and everything else.
Yeah.
That we were not equipped to deal with either. But that's not part of this. But anyway, just to give people perspective. So
yeah, when you talk about blacklisting, like there were a bunch of hula hoops of leaving the church, then rumors of it, and then certain rumors like gaining the upper hand.
Yeah.
That's a very, I know this isn't the subject. That's a very painful part of the world we live in. Is there's a lot of accusation that gets the attention and seems to win the narrative.
Always, yeah.
I don't want to say always, but
I know what you're saying, boo.
You like to do that though. You go, always.
I do like that. I like to like catastrophize things. Anyways, okay, so let's continue on.
But no, just to bring it into perspective. Boo. Okay, that's painful. And it's like, what do you do with it when you're going through pain, but then you're also in relational change?
Right, because you could be going through miscarriage. You could be going through stuff, you and your husband, and like your mother-in-law is giving like trouble. Your work, like we're bringing out that stuff because there's always other external things too coming. Always. It's like. People say things come in threes. They come in 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Like when it hits, it hits. So This is speaking to the core of like even dealing with all the stuff going on around you.
So you modeled for me in that, and then I felt like I needed to be a mirror back to you, that like you need to you're
right.
You have a very nurturing heart and very safe heart, but I'm like, you also need this too. We both need to make room for that. And that's been a sign throughout the journey of making just an awareness of letting that healing work happen. The healing happens in a variety of different ways. There's no formula to this. But I think when you start with love, when you start with looking at it as though you were looking at it in somebody you deeply loved, and they're going through it. And if you were accessing the depth of compassionate love, what would your perspective over it be? Okay, now take that lens and look at it in yourself. And people go, "Ooh, I don't know if I can do that." Exactly, because we've been trained to hate ourselves and spiritualize it. And it's like, no. This isn't, Jesus didn't die on the cross so you could be fighting with yourself all day. So I think that's really, it sets the stage for you to discover what you need. Because for some, it's like, I don't take the time that I need to for myself, and and not even like I have to sit and do a spiritual routine. Maybe it's just being still. Maybe it's just, that I got lost from that daily walk. I need to just take that walk. Or, I got that friend that when I talk to them, we have just great conversation. I need to just keep in mind to do that. Because I think that the summary I'm hearing from you is you have to just go through it. But the one tweak is, how are you looking at yourself? Right.
What is the loving relationship flow like between you and God and towards yourself? Because then ultimately, that's the foundation of everything then in how you're going to handle these traumatic situations, handle the pain of loss, handle God, handle all of those things flow out of that.
So I want to take it into another direction, because we mentioned this years ago because we taught on it a lot. During those times, Max was showing developmental delays. We had the miscarriage, soon after Abby is born. You and I went through a massive renovation in our marriage, meaning that we really dealt with and faced and confronted the things that we saw in our generations that we wanted to see broken. Primarily, what exists today is this mass of emotionally, spiritually passive men in the home. I'm not talking about at church, on the platform. I'm not talking about at work, because men can be very, they can excel in those places. At home, where we realize, wow, we already felt right from the beginning to fall into the default settings of our generations, right? Which, like, the passive man, and the woman kind of goes, well, I've got to
woman being bitter.
I've got to take it, and I got to take the spiritual responsibilities of the kids, and I got to carry it. So there's this weight on women in many homes. I'm going to say a majority.
Yeah.
Vast majority.
I would say so.
And so this thing started springing up in us, because the pull was me getting lost in providing, working this job, working that job, can't even see straight because I'm so tired, not having a lot of energy once I get home. Then there's frustrations, and we're not hearing each other. It led us into I would say, probably one of the most humbling experiences of our lives. Of really praying through, recognizing, praying together.
Yes.
And breaking these, I'm just going to call them strongholds, that were wanting to prevent us from being one as a couple.
The war over that was crazy.
Yeah. And I think that it caused me to awaken as a man, to realize that there's a lot of very passive, very weak, undeveloped muscles in who I am as a man. And we live in a culture that, the devil hates men. Well, he hates women, but he hates what the seed and heart of a man and a father brings. Correct. That's why he's a counterfeit. He's called the father of lies. He wants to be your daddy. And what he'll do for a man is a very slight movement. It's not necessarily just the anger or his lust problems. Why am I using the tissue box as a prop? Right. It's more just a slight withdrawal. So a man gets focused on, if my wife would just be better, or just stop being so angry, or if she'd just be happier, then I'd be okay. And it just makes the problem worse. And I had to confront that that I and the men around me came from generations and generations of very passive, emotionally, spiritually weak men.
Selfish.
Who could
too, yeah.
very, very, if you get down to it, selfish.
It is, right? Because it's looking at what your needs are.
Correct. Correct. And revealing a man is not, Paul said a man who loves his wife loves himself. So we're dealing with a plague of self-hatred in men that's hidden, right? And the wife tugs on it and goes, "Hey, hon, I could use you more." And then his anger comes out, right? And then they fight, and then it's, well, I'm doing all this and I'm tired. And then he goes back into his passive mode, right? My heart is aching because I see what's going on in the hearts of sisters in Christ.
Yeah.
And it's not blaming men. It's not about blaming anybody, but it's revealing the disempowerment men are living in.
Right.
Couples are not having conversations. Couples are not talking. Men are not praying with their wives. They're not engaged in the emotional areas of what their wives are struggling with.
Right.
They're disconnected from it. It's this subject.
You cannot talk about, see, here's, I don't mean to cut you off.
No,
but
sorry.
You cannot have this discussion about a woman healing her heart without addressing men getting their heart healed. And I'm not just talking about marriages. At the end of the day, what's going to heal the land?
The fathers and the sons.
The fathers and the sons.
Right.
And men being a healthy, loving warrior coming from their heart. If you're in a room, if a woman is in a room just with a man that she knows is safe, but strong and kind.
Right.
It is the ultimate in safety. It's the ultimate in healing. It's the ultimate in her breathing. It's everything. Ah!
Right. Right. We did a whole series called Marriage for Overcomers where we went into it, went into some things that were very fundamental in our early renovation process. We call it Marriage for Overcomers because it's not for everybody. It's not like just a nice, hey, just have a date night every week, although that stuff's important. It's like, no, let's get to the nitty gritty.
I see many people out on date nights at restaurants and they don't talk. So
I found in marriage work, I was overwhelmed with how much couples actually don't talk.
Yeah.
And so we pushed into the land of no, we're going to talk about this.
Yeah. Or if they're talking, they're not talking honestly.
Right. So I think that it's an interesting journey because I can't solve your problem. And we go into marriage expecting the other person to heal our heart. A man is going to a woman to heal his father wound. And in fact, it's going to bring out your father and your mother wounds and how you see women.
And vice versa, right?
Correct. And for her, going in thinking this is going to be, and for many people, that it's the myth that we go into. Then you get into it and you think, so the problem comes up and you think, well, I just married the wrong person. No, it's an invitation now to go, both of you need a sharpening in what it means to relate and become one flesh and learn what it means to be one flesh.
So I'm going to be like super honest. Okay. I'm going to be very honest. And I'm going to tell our listeners, every time we go into a show like this and we discuss and we talk, I say this statement to you. And I could literally go through two different emotions of anger and deep, deep sadness. That when we talk about the heart of a woman healing and all of these things, I struggle because I want to encourage. And yes, there is a part of our journey that is ours. And Mark can't heal everything for me. I have to be strategic. I have to, do my own duties of how I'm going to heal my heart and my own process and pursue that. I have to be responsible for that. But there is a predominant place that Mark plays in our life of how that journey is going to go. It's just the truth. And I struggle very, very much in helping women with their hearts when I know that every time they go home, it will be broken again by the person that they're with. Whether that's a father, a boyfriend, a husband. I struggle deeply with this. And
Me too.
And I felt, Mark and I both struggle with this. And please hear us. We're not demeaning all the men, but we got to talk honest about this on what this looks like, because we're in desperate times of this being healed and being made whole to how we're going to raise the next generation, because it ain't looking good. Okay. And people are falling away from the faith in massive amounts of numbers because of so many reasons about the church and hypocrisy and family. That's a whole thing in and of itself. But at the core of it, why we have fought through, you and I going through almost losing our home, poverty, our child with going through everything we've gone through. At the end of the day, we believe in the power of health in relationships and what that means in the home, and God reigning over your home and you receiving that from him. We believe in the absolute power of that. So I don't care if it's one listener, 100, 1,000, whoever it is, if you will hear what we're having to say, we're going to keep fighting for that. But there is a pain in this journey that Mark and I have both grieved over deeply, because we ourselves have had to fight for it when it comes to healing our own hearts, whether it be after miscarriage or you as a man not feeling you're good. I mean, everything you can think of in life, right? Yeah. Like, you have to fight for it. You have to want to do that. You have to want to have health for your heart. You have to want to do those things. And we can't give you the want, but it's there and it's available.
It's really good.
It's hard. It's very, very hard.
Well, I think that this is a pain we carry every day. Now, when I say that, maybe I should call it an ache.
Yeah.
It's a little different. It's an ache. And I'm not interested in just making it go away, because sometimes the ache you feel releases a signal to do something about it. And I think my journey caused me to awake to my heart as a man. I had a fork in the road that I was going to just repeat my generations and remain in the spiritual coma as a man, but yet be able to do things on stage or present, still looking and appearing as a man of God, but yet in many ways my own world, not really living that out. I got awakened to my world. I got awakened to my pain. I got awakened to what I lacked. I awakened to the love that my father had for me. And I awakened to the slavery I was living in. And so awakening to the heart of the Father to raise up sons is a primary heart that we carry. And so the ache comes up in everything I watch. So if I watch the news and tensions between people, I see the heart of the Father missing. Mm-hmm. And I see the heart of the Father, don't you dare talk about that, right? It's like, not talked about.
No, you can't.
Where's the heart of the Father in all this? Where's the heart of the Father in violence and this situation in drugs or relations between groups or things? It's the Father's heart that brings healing, which then shows us his heart as a father. So I got awakened to that and got to a place where, like, I'm not going to try to alleviate that ache. The ache is there because it leads me to go, I'm not going to numb this out. And men, we're living in a day and age where we're numbing our pain out. You're numbing your pain out. Your addiction to pornography is your way of numbing out your pain. It's your father wound. It's your mother wound. It's those ill-equipped, unloved places of your heart, looking for love in all the wrong places. Your workaholism is your way to numb the pain. your anger battle. It's not about your anger battle. It's about the unloved places of your heart that need equipping. Because when a man starts to experience that, he sees his wife differently. If you interact with your wife and you feel, oh, I wish I could just get out of this discussion, or I wish my wife would just get better, or I wish we'd stop navigating this, you're entertaining the coma.
Right.
You're entertaining the stronghold of, I'm going to call it the demon of coma.
Mm-hmm. Because here's the thing that I want to say too, to kind of go back to just what I was saying, and also on top of what you're saying now, that I had a responsibility of my own journey to connect to healing from my upbringing, healing and how I processed. And, you and I have had very special times of repentance towards each other, which have been very powerful. However, I'm going to make this very definitive statement. You can challenge me if you want, but I don't think you will. I would not be at the place in my healing journey if it had not been for the pursuit of your own. It wouldn't. And I could bawl my eyes out over that. Mark put his own heart first in line with God's heart. And out of that, mine became safe. Our children's became safe. And I was free in so many ways to heal in things that I don't think I would have ever been able to. I just don't. I think that there is only so far that you can go without having that in your life. And I believe that 150%.
I'm thinking back to the process of it. And that's hard to explain to people that's my priority. And it's not a priority on a piece of paper.
I've had people say to me, is Mark like a real person? Is that really him? I'm like,
I'm not.
It's not, he's not a Superman. My gosh, he does but the stuff.
Yeah,
I know. And I'm
not like that super interesting and fascinating.
Sorry, I don't mean to keep hitting the
mic.
We're goofy, and
I'm not this like prolific personality, but I value that safety for you so much, but I got to cultivate that in me. Mm-hmm. And so I feel that what opened it up, because we get overwhelmed with what does the process look like? And I think what people do is they listen and they go, oh, what prayers did you pray? What things did you do? Can you give us the book and the pamphlet of the prayers you repented through? And we could share some of that, but that may not be your pathway and it looking like that. But I will say one thing that busted down the walls was humbling myself.
Yeah.
I cannot emphasize this enough. When you humble your heart, it dominoes like hundreds of things. You might look and go, I got this battle, this battle, this battle. When you just honestly humble your heart, I'm not talking about like beating yourself up. That's not humility. That's not even close to what I'm talking about. That I like, you might have certain things you're pointing at me, and my response is, this isn't my fault. I didn't even do this. Like, what are you even doing? Humbling my heart, putting my knives down, my darts down, my armor down. Just going, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. And I want to be better. And there is a defensive pride in men that it's like a demon that hates it. Mm-hmm. Let's just call it what it is. It's like a demonic, angry that I'm a wimp. See, this is the thing. We're wimpy, but we think we're going to be a wimp if we humble ourselves to our wives and say, you know what? I've got some things to do and work on. Isn't it interesting?
Isn't that true?
We live in wimpiness and believe it's wimpy to humble ourselves to our wife. Where I at times, we talk about this in other broadcasts, right? Like, actually knelt.
You did.
In front of you. Because it was about breaking the pride of my generations. It was about breaking this nonsense self-protection that I got to keep things right, and my perfectionistic OCD that like is surrounded with religiosity, and I said the right thing, what's wrong? No, that's not how relationships work. Relationships are healed when you go, you know what? Something happened here that damaged your heart, and I'm a humble vessel to be a part of the solution, and I'm sorry if any way that happened, because that's not my heart. And leadership actually starts with heading down versus you talk about men rising up. It actually happens through personally breaking through the shame and all the I'm a terrible man and I'm a bad husband and I'm a bad father. No, it's none of that. It's I got to learn, and I'll humble myself so I can learn what I need to learn. This dovetails into mental health. How did you break through in mental health? One day I just wept before God and said, I got nothing. I don't know how to do this, but I know there's something I need to discover. Right. Now, some people do that. They go, I don't have anything. I don't know anything. But they just stay in that. It was like, no. I know nothing, but I know it's there. So then what it does is it postures you to your world of a learning experience. So I'm like, I don't know how to be a good husband, but I'm going to look for anybody that shows any signs of it. Then I looked around. I didn't see a lot of examples.
I was going to say,
that's a whole nother story. And then I go to people for advice, and then they're asking me for help. Asking me for help. I'm like, wait, I came to you for help. And that was, but it's like when you humble yourself in not knowing, it creates a magnetic openness of bringing to you what you need to learn. But it's only through humility. And it's not like, we were taught humility. I'm such a sinner. Oh, God. No, that's self-hatred. Knock it off. That's not humility. I want to tell those people, get up, stop your crying.
It's pity, right?
Pity, right?
Pity.
But that's what we were taught. It's still, it's self.
Like it's some big religious badge to wear.
Yes, it's self-attention. No, it's not it. It's not it. It's like, no, I don't know how to love. I don't know how to be a husband. I don't know how to be a father, but you'll show me. So then I realized I learn in the doing. So I try to lead in a way in our home, and maybe it wouldn't get executed well. And I can tell by the way you're responding, like this isn't working.
I was like,
this isn't working right. Okay.
No, sir.
So, all right. You know what? All right. You know what? This didn't come across the way I wanted it to. I'll learn, regroup, and come back. Well, I'm tired, and I'm okay. Well, I don't know what to tell you, because that's important to me. So you put all your energy.
Yeah, it didn't just all flow out so majestically. We had a lot to fight through, and I don't mean to cut you off on what your process has been, but then I had to say, okay, he is showing me who he wants to be and who he's becoming, and I had to put my dukes down too. So there was that process in me, because I didn't trust what any man would say. So it was a long journey of that.
Right.
Yeah.
Where I was like, I got this umbrella. Come under the umbrella.
Yeah. And I was like,
it's raining out. Come on,
Right.
And then you had to make that decision of, am I going to now
trust? And right. Anyway, we could go on and on. I hope this is helping people. Let us know.
If it's not, it's helping us.
I know, right? Because listen, life is hard and stuff doesn't go well a lot of the time. And to be honest with you, I've had to come out of that mindset of that, like, all these other women were blessed and there was something wrong with me because I went through all these things. And we have stories and stories and stories we can tell, as I'm sure a lot of you do. And maybe, I had someone not that long ago, Mark and I had gone through something, and I had the person say to me, I'm so sorry you went through that. And when they said it to me, I didn't realize how much I needed to hear it. I literally felt like pricklies go up I could feel I had a physical reaction to the person saying that to me. I could feel it like go up into my brain.
That's right.
And I just let myself, because normally I shut the tears down. I had to come out of that too. That's a whole other healing thing. However, I would shut the tears down before, but I just let myself sit there in front of this person and sob like a baby. And I said, thank you for saying that to me. Thank you. I had to learn to receive that too, because women were good at like, I'm just going to keep going on. And
no solution, no answer, just I'm sorry.
The lovingly way of just saying it to me was so motherly, like what I needed to hear. I'm so sorry. That's
what we're trying to convey here. It's the humble, compassionate heart. And out of that, you find your way. Going back to the question here, you said I had a miscarriage a few years ago. How do I find myself again? I notice I don't take care of myself since, and I don't do anything for myself. So that is a sign of grieving that needs to be processed through, where you feel, because depression can be a part of a signal, like, hey, there's stuff locked up inside of you that needs to be processed out. And one of the things I want to just leave as an encouragement practically to this, interpretation's everything. So you said, I feel like I'm not the same person anymore. That the interpretation of that thought is going to be key, because is it time for you to go back to the person you were before? Or is this experience now a part of your life, and there's an invitation for a deeper understanding of who you are?
It's really good.
Right? And so it's normal, but my encouragement to men and women, we have to get back to discovering who we are as sons and daughters. And I don't want that to even become a cliche, because it's quickly becoming one. I'm a son, I'm a daughter. We just kind of say it. In our pain, what does it look like for a loved daughter? What does a loving father, what does a loving mother provide as a perspective in those kind of situations? And that's what you want to give to yourself. And you make this space that's needed. And it's not just getting alone with God. It's not just praying, finding those avenues. That's a part of it. I sometimes encourage, open up the palette to healing, that throughout the day, God, I just open my heart, that throughout the day, maybe I have a great conversation with someone. And without obsessing over it, I find some great healing in that interaction. God has amazing ways of meeting you.
So true.
But you have to make
room for it. You have to make room for it.
Or when that woman said what she said to you, you would have dismissed it, moved on, said thank you, give a nice, Christian answer, and then take the gift and throw it away.
That's a true statement.
So, anyways, we went into some deep stuff today.
We did.
If this episode was a blessing to your life, we're clearly, I don't even have to say this, but it's worth saying, we're pouring our hearts out into what we're providing for you and what we're hoping to give as resources. We're not looking from the outside in. We're looking as people who we're in our own journey. We're learning. We're growing. We're continuing to heal. We'll always continue to heal. But if it's a blessing to your life, go to markdejesus.com, click on the donate button, and that helps us. So do a one-time donation or on a regular basis. There's various ways you can do that and participate with that. We have a transformational tribe, a level 1, level 2, that also plugs you into resources. You'll have to go to that donate page and you'll see more information on that. Melissa mentioned the book, God Loves Me and I Love Myself. And I think that's probably the place to start with both men and women. And I'm praying that many men of God who are married or even single, hoping to be married, or I'm praying that our men hear this episode, and that they don't tune it out. I pray that people can listen as couples and find their way to walk through it. I don't think I have a slide to put up of it, but if you're looking for Marriage for Overcomers, if you're like, man, we really want to go deeper and we want to really roll up our sleeves, go to my course page on markdejesus.com. You can go to the top. It says courses, and then scroll through and you'll find Marriage for Overcomers. It's split up into volumes, or you can buy the whole package if you just want to dive into the Pacific Ocean of it all.
Ooh.
But anyways, we pray this episode has been a blessing to your life and to your journey. And listen, folks, we just pray that love and grace would surround everything that we say.
Yeah.
That it would not be used as accusation against you, but awakening to empower you. And we look forward to seeing you all in future episodes.
Thank you, everyone.